Hey friends, so today we're going to talk about the most important topic of all time, which is why Kyle XY is the most underrated show of all time. Because what the fuck? Okay, we're going to start with story-wise, super unique topic, and it's very interesting because it's based on some scientific research of some sort or a creative idea that could possibly be true in the future, which I think is just so cool. Um, Factually, some of the things that they talk about in the film, like, the percentage of brain power that we use, I think some of those things have been updated and aren't true anymore. But nonetheless, it's a 2006 show, and she's still killing it. That's all I have to say. And it's on Hulu now if you want to watch it, which you should. If you have not seen it, you are missing out. I promise you. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so story-wise, I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna reveal the juice real quick. So if you don't want spoilers, you can skip ahead. But, so the story is about Kyle, who is found in the woods completely naked, which I feel like people that just watched the first episode probably turn it off after, because the pilot episode, I'm not gonna lie, is not that great. It's just weird. The opening shot is him just naked in the woods, which I should add, it was an ABC Family show, so there's no actual nudity or anything. It's just I don't know. I get it. People might get turned off by the show. And also the acting in the pilot episode is very rough, to say the least. But I definitely, it gets so much better. I just please watch it. So he's found in the woods. Well, he walks out of the woods into the city. And the police pick him up because it's this naked dude just walking around. And so he gets put in a juvenile detention center. And social worker Nicole comes to the detention center. And I guess one of the counselors, maybe? I don't know. But he tells her, oh, he doesn't belong here. We need him to go stay at a safe place for right now. So she takes him in. So he comes and lives with her family. And so she has a kid, Josh, and then she has a kid. How am I forgetting her name? Lori. I literally just watched the pilot episode. This is sad. Anyways, I promise I've watched it fully through 5 times, and that's not an exaggeration. And I'm gonna watch it again because it's on Hulu now, and I'm so fucking excited. But nonetheless, so it's funny because if you watch the pilot episode, I think a lot of the characters change a little bit, specifically Lori, because in the pilot episode, I think they kind of go in on the idea that she's kind of, 2006, the slut. Because our first introduction to her is her waking up with her boyfriend, and she's a teenage girl, and they're both putting on their clothes, and he's jumping out the window, which they change as the show goes on. They kind of are well, no, but she's still a virgin, which, things like this, there's definitely problematic topics that the show has, because again, it's made in 2006, and a lot of people in Hollywood didn't know what the fuck was right or wrong, apparently. So yeah, they kind of have that kind of vibe happening. But then Kyle leaves the house. Sorry, my heat just came on, so it's probably a little loud. But Kyle is left alone with Lori, and Lori's on the phone with her little mans. So Kyle sneaks out of the house and goes and sneaks into, he just like walks into some neighbor's house, his next door neighbor, and it's this girl Amanda, and she's playing the piano. And oh, I love it. She's playing, what is it called? But it's, oh, I love it. She's a piano player. And so you kind of get the dynamic that, you know, Kyle is learning so many things and just kind of picking up on it. And his first time hearing music, he loves it, but he realizes like her mom comes in the door and just kind of like walks right past without like giving any notice. And Kyle has that like realization of, oh, like people don't really care about this like beautiful thing, which I love because I'm a sweet Kyle. Like he just knows what's good. Music is so good. But so yeah, that's kind of like the pilot episode. Josh and Lori both kind of hate on Kyle. Because neither one of them want him to be there. He doesn't know how to talk or communicate with them. But at the end of the episode, he's finally like starting to talk, which again, like once I go into like the big reveal of the show and why I love like the concept of it, it kind of is more, I think it's unrealistic I don't know. But nonetheless, he like learns to talk, you know, in one single day. So yeah, that was the pilot episode. It was beautiful. Bad acting. Definitely not the best made, but it was a pilot, and I feel like so many shows, the pilot episode is pretty bad, and then it gets better. Sometimes it's the other way around. So the whole concept of Kyle XY, I just wanted to refresh you on the pilot so you know what's going on. But now here's the spoiler. So the concept of Kyle XY is that he was a science experiment, and they were doing a science experiment to see if it would be possible to incubate a baby in a tank, basically. Is it Adam? Why do I feel like it's Adam? But his actual, he calls him his father once he kind of like learns that what's happening. But he basically comes up with this formula for a fluid that would be in this chamber, and it's supposed to be like the amniotic fluid. His whole idea when he created the science experiment was that it would be a way for women who can't carry children, or even just like a solution for women not having to have birth, because it is such a toll on a woman's body. If there was a way to externally basically grow a child, or grow an infant. So yes, he creates this like chamber, and they're doing experiments, and kids or the fetuses that they keep putting in the chambers keep dying because it's not working properly. So he kind of wants to give up on the experiment, and finally they get an infant to survive in the chamber. And so as this infant is growing, it gets to be like 9 months. So he's like, okay, let's pull the kid out. And I think that actually, if I'm remembering correctly, the issue was that at the end of the incubation process, at that 9-month mark, when they would try to take the infants out of the chamber, is when they would die. So he was afraid to take Kyle out of the chamber, but he wanted to. It was, a 9-month period is up. However, his science team disagreed with him. Science research team, whatever. So they they basically kicked him out and were like, yeah, we're taking over this experiment. Your work is done here. And they wanted to test the limit of how long can you incubate an infant. And that is a very interesting, like, I don't know, that's just like a very interesting topic to me. Like, as humans have evolved, our brains, like, cranium capacity has grown. So it's so interesting to me, the concept of like what would be possible if your brain developed even larger and even longer. Um, so I just love the concept of the show. However, I mean, I guess thinking about it, I don't know. Would your skull matter also? Like, or your skull matter? Like, the size of your skull, would it also grow? Is my question. But I think human skulls have actually gotten smaller and throughout evolution. I've taken 2 anthropology classes and learned about it. I only remember like a little bit. I remember like, the basic stuff, but I don't remember quite the complete evolutionary process of the skull. But I think it's just such an interesting like topic, and I think building the show around that is I just love it. Like, I've never heard of a show or a movie like talking about that. Um so just super unique, and that's what I love about the show is it's not something you've seen before, and I love that. And also, I don't think you really even get to know the answer until like season 2. And I think so it really like keeps you hanging, waiting, but not in a bad way. Like, I was definitely hooked throughout the show. I never was like, okay, come on, like, tell us what's going on. Because and even watching the pilot, knowing the ending, they were very clever. Because, like, so basically Kyle, and then in season 2, you meet another character, Jesse. Kyle and Jesse were the only 2 that were incubated, which Kyle didn't know about Jesse until season 2. She is then broken out of the incubation. So the pilot episode on the TV, this like news reporter is talking about a girl that I think she said like they found her washed up on shore and she didn't remember where she came from. So they kind of trick you into thinking, okay, so this isn't a like one instance thing. But that was completely not related at all, which I love, because you're watching just like throughout the season, they keep kind of like throwing things at you, just to keep you like, okay, I'm starting to put it together, but in reality, you're not. So I love that. And now I just want to talk about the writing as a screenwriter in the making. I just love the writing of the show. I will, like, again, I think pilot episodes, some of the first episodes are a little clunky, but the writing is very good, and I do think, especially for the time it was made in, they talk about some great topics. I think it's probably season 2 or season 3 when they get into talking about like homophobia, which I just think for its time, I thought it was like, again, because it doesn't seem like that long ago, but if you do go back and watch shows from the early 2000s, a lot of them didn't touch on stuff like that, or if they did, not in a very good way. Which I think that this show did a pretty good job with that, although, like, there's a very, very little diverse cast. I think in the first episode, you have one African-American character, well, there was, like, 3, but, like, one of them was, like, the villain of the episode, and I think probably the other one, so there was just 2. I think the other one was kind of whitewashed. You can tell, like, it wasn't authentic writing. So that's, of course, disappointing, but again, 2006, can we be surprised? No. So that's the kind of downsides of the show. I really wish they would have like a comeback of the concept of the show, but a more modern version of it. Because I just love like the story of it, but again, like it could be made so much better. It's like the writing, there's some beautiful lines in the show. I think that I don't know, there's just some like very good concepts in the show that are talked about. So again, early 2000s, I love the mother, Nicole. She is like I just love her. Like she's the hardworking woman that lays her ground. She's like, it's clear like she works even more than her husband does, which I love. Like just kind of that they don't have in the show any sort of like gender inequality happening in the household, which a lot of shows still, even like the mother character, you don't know what her job is, or if you do, it's maybe mentioned once. But she's always cooking the meals, and again, you still do, unfortunately, like Nicole is always the nurturing one, the one cooking the meals and all of that. So of course you do have those traditional things, which I feel like will change, but I think that is still a thing for a lot of families in our society. I don't know. I'm curious to see how that changes when like people my age and then even younger than me get older. Like how will the household dynamic change? But I don't know. I just love that. I feel like the representation of the home life is progressive for its time, which I love. Again, and it's just also they have that very. I think they portray like a loving relationship on the show very well. You can see that like Nicole and her husband have a good relationship with each other, and I think that they do a good job of showing like what a loving relationship looks like, rather than just, mother and father forced into a marriage because they have children and have to take care of them. Like there's not that going on. So yeah, and another thing I love, so like Nicole, I think she's a psychologist in the show, so it kind of makes sense, but I think she's a great character because she's so understanding, and you can tell like her character is made to really think before she like acts on anything, which I love. Like I think like Lori comes to her about her sex life, kind of. She kind of, jumps around the bush, but I think it's a good conversation that you see happening, because it's not a like weird imbalance happening. I said imbalance. That's not the word I meant. But like, it's not awkward. She's just so like loving and showing her like understanding side, which like that's beautiful. Like I think like especially topics like that, I wish were more like better discussed in the home, I guess. It's just like stuff like that is so awkward to talk about, and I feel like Nicole is like that character that you would go to with anything. She just sits and listens, and then always usually has this like beautiful advice to give. So love me some Nicole Traeger. And so yeah, and then there's like Amanda's character. Amanda, is, I don't know how I feel about like how they did her, because so the pilot episode, Amanda and Kyle share this like moment of like looking at each other in awe, and like you can tell like there's just this like there's a vibe there. And like even Nicole and then Amanda's mother are both like standing there and just like, oh, like they can feel the sexual tension happening. But it's just weird because then I think, I don't know if one of the like episodes after that, it's revealed that she has a boyfriend and is in like this loving relationship with him, which it's just, I don't know, it just felt weird because that first episode they had this like you could tell like she was into it, so I'm just confused if that was just something that got lost in translation when they started making more episodes after the pilot, or if it was a change of opinion, like, oh, how can we like further her story. But again, it's also just like, I think all of these characters in the show have such a beautiful character arc, and I think that's so like important. And again, like, it sucks that there's no diversity. Like there's no LGBTQ plus characters in the show, which sucks. I wish that there was some representation for that. There's no characters with a disability. There's no characters outside of the white Caucasian ethnicity, so that kind of sucks. It does suck. But every one of the characters grows and changes so much throughout the show. Like, if you watch, I don't know, like, last few episodes of the show and compare that to the first pilot episode, or even just like the first few episodes of the show, it's like insane the amount of character growth, but it's done so beautifully, and just well thought out. Like, again, you have the character Lori, and I think a lot of her character is, I love it because I think they show a lot of like teenage issues that girls kind of deal with when they're in a high school age. And again, like, first episode they kind of make her out to be like a slut, which I don't like, because like her brother comments on her being like, I think he tells her, like, the mom asks, oh, where's Lori? And he's like, oh, I think she got a call from Mrs. Planned Parenthood. Like, just kind of the like joking about her being slutty, but then it's kind of revealed that she's still a virgin, which again, it's like, why does it matter? I'm just like, oh, I just hate how I don't know. Society in general, why do we make it all about the women? What about the men too? Like, if you're gonna make a big deal out of a girl being a virgin, make a big deal out of a guy too. You know what I mean? But anyways, we're getting off topic here. But like, you have Lori, I think, is one of the most developed characters in the show, because she grows from being this girl that is considered a slut, and then you see her dealing with, oh, like, when do I lose my virginity? Like, who do I lose that to? And I think the thing I love is that we get the female perspective of her when she does lose her virginity in the show. It's not a good time for her, and she doesn't like it, and I think showing that is really good, because I think a lot of times shows make it about the male perspective, or they just don't give the voice to the female, and you kind of get to see her growth throughout the show from that, and kind of how she grows in the people that she allows into her life, and the people that she gives herself and her heart to, because again, she gives it, like, she goes after this guy Declan, and he is also a super well-developed character throughout the show, because he's kind of shown as the male version of how they want to show Lori, which is the male slut, the male whore. And so, he's getting with all kinds of girls, and it's not a problem for him. But I think that the show does a good idea, because we're getting it from Lori's perspective, looking at him, and you kind of see, like, he changes because of Lori and because of what she teaches him. Like, she tells him, like, if we're going to do this, like, you're going to commit to me, which I love. Like, set your boundaries and call him out for his shit. So yeah, and then you just see, like, Declan's just this kind of asshole character in the beginning of the show. Very selfish, very just not, I guess even just responsible. But at the end of the show, like, he just grows so much. He becomes someone that truly cares, and for Lori and Kyle, he becomes a great friend to Kyle and a very trustworthy person for Kyle to go to. And you just see that kind of relationship develop throughout the show, which I think is beautiful. With Lori too, by the end of the show, like, she knows who she is. And you see her, I love, again, like, the show kind of shows, like, she has some struggles that she is going through, and you see, like, these kind of outlets that she chooses to, or I guess she even tries out to see, like, how can I handle this pain of these shitty relationships that I've been through. And you see her, like, turn to music, and I love that, again, like, because I am such a lover of music, like, literally at the core of my heart. And the show does such a good portrayal of the beauty of music and the healing power of music, because, again, like, Lori kind of starts to learn the guitar, and she starts, like, learning, like, wow, like, I can be good at this. And writing music to express her feelings. So very strong character growth there. Josh also grows immensely. He grows from this, like, teenage boy, little brat that's, like, flipping through freaking porn magazines, which, like, is insane to me, because, like, I don't know, like, the internet was around in 2006. I guess he probably was just, like, too afraid to use a computer. It's like, why are you still flipping through Playboy magazines? I don't know. But anyways, so you have, just kind of this immature kid, and he grows through so much throughout the show because of a character that's introduced later, Andy. Andy, I love her. She's so good. But she ends up being his girlfriend, and just, like, because of her, he grows so much. He does, like, he understands that a relationship and attraction for someone should be based more so off of, compatibility through your interests and the things that you hold most dear to your heart. And she kind of shows him, like, yeah, because she's kind of the tomboyish character, which I love. And she kind of shows him, like, yeah, I'm not the girl that you would look at and be like, ooh, I want to date her. But she's the girl that you fall in love with because of her personality. And she very much reminds me of Nicole, because she also has this very, like, she's just understanding, and she believes in that, in pushing Josh to be the best person that he can be, and I love that. She's so good. So now we're going to talk about Jesse, because fucking Jesse is my favorite character of all time. I mean, Kyle, we love Kyle. Kyle also, I'll get to him, because he has a beautiful character arc as well, but Jessie, I love because she's kind of introduced as the complete opposite of Kyle. She's kind of acts on her nature, and I think it's a great parallel because they kind of show, like, she's more animalistic in that, like, I think, spoiler, but like she kills in her her first day out of the incubation. She murders a man out of self-defense, but Kyle is always the defense. Like, he doesn't want to hurt anyone. He always, like, if someone, like, there's a couple episodes where, like, someone goes to punch him or hurt him, and he just, like, stops them because he's super strong. So he's always on the defense. He won't hurt anyone intentionally. Jessie, on the other hand, like, she is kind of the aggressor, the one that she doesn't give a fuck. Like, she'll do what she wants. And again, opposite to Kyle, Kyle is very in tune with other people's emotions and always wants to be the person for everyone to go, like, he's just a beautiful soul. And Jessie is more self-focused and self-aware. I won't say self-aware because I don't think she's very aware of her actions on other people, but, like, she's always just thinking of, like, ways that she can better herself, and not necessarily in social ways, but more like physical and mental ways. She wants to be the best at everything, which, it's just completely opposite of Kyle. Kyle's like, oh no, I just want to be everyone's friend and blah blah blah, but Jessie's like, I don't give a fuck about anyone. I can do all this shit, and that's all I need for myself. So I love her. But she has this, again, that beautiful character growth throughout the show. I think she's introduced beginning of season 2, and then by the end of season 3, she's just so matured. And you can tell, like, she still has those core principles of, she's aggressive and she is still, like, self-involved. However, you can see that she does make actions to care for other people, and she's trying, like, that's her goal, is to try to be a better person, because she kind of has this realization for herself that she doesn't like the person that she's become, and so she tries to better that, and I love that. Kyle, so, okay, to talk about Kyle, I have to spoil the last episode of the show because they leave it on a cliffhanger, and I'm so pissed about it. So again, Kyle, throughout the show, he is just this heartwarming, lovely little puppy, but throughout the show you see him harden. He is trying to focus on bettering himself, but because of that he has to let go of constantly being there for everyone else. So you kind of see that, like, he's struggling with the balance of that, like, self-involvement versus like just being there for everyone else all the time. So I love that, like, they kind of show that, because, I mean, like, of course the average person doesn't deal with, training to be able to, like, walk across fire, or training to be able to walk across water. I don't think the average Joe is doing that. However, I feel like everyone can relate to that struggle of trying to, at least for me, like, trying to be there for other people and be the one to be there to listen to someone, but also be able to focus on yourself and self-care, and self-growth. So yeah, I love it. It's so good. I just find the show, like, it is a science fiction. It's definitely not realistic, but the character dynamics and the thematic elements that they talk about throughout the show are very relatable, and I love that. Even though the show is now, like, it's 2022. That's insane. 16 years old now. So yeah, like, but the show it still has a place. I love it so much. But okay, talking about Kyle. So that final episode. So again, we're seeing this change in him throughout the episode, becoming more selfish, but more hardened also, in that, like, he's still not hurting, like, going out of it, like, being the offensive, but you can tell he's hardened, in that he's done being the nice one to everyone, and he starts sticking up for himself, and, like, has his morality. He knows who he is and where he crosses the line at helping someone else, or just being courteous or nice to someone else, if they don't fit within his moral guidelines, that he holds for himself. And that final episode, he finds out that his brother, this guy that is he wants to basically do more experiment. He wants to pick up the experiment, and make more infants like Kyle and Jesse. And you kind of find out in the last episode he's doing, like, a cloning process with them, which, I don't know. Like, again, I feel like that might kind of run off of the kind of main story of this incubation process that takes, obviously he was in there for about 16 years, I think. So a 16-year long process, and then, like, Kyle goes into this, like, lab industrial building place and sees a bunch of these pods with himself in them, like, just different, like, clones of himself, and, like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, how did they get it? It would have had to have been a different process than, like, the original incubation process. So, and they don't really go into that. So I don't know how they did that. But he faces this moral dilemma in the ending episode, because he wants to destroy this man that is doing these clonings, because he thinks it is morally wrong what happened to him. He doesn't think it is morally right that they kept him in a pod for 16 years. And he doesn't think it's morally right that they're now trying to use him as a science experiment. Completely fair. So this brother is, like, coming after Kyle and trying to, like, stop him from destroying his, like, experiments. And then in the very final moments of the show, Kyle, like, is strangling the guy, and he's like, "You can't kill me, I'm your brother, we have the same mother." And then the show ends, and that's all you get. What the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? It could have been so good if I just wanted, like, one more episode to see if Kyle breaks that moral code that he has of hurting others. Strangling, like, him alone is completely shows that kind of character growth, and that Kyle is not at all the same person that he was in the first season. Like, he has definitely changed. He's hardened. He's become stronger. But you just don't know. Like, I mean, I would assume knowing his character, he would have let go of him and allowed him to explain himself and talk it through. But it is interesting to think, like, what if Kyle did kill this guy because he knows he's doing something morally wrong? So that's kind of interesting. I don't know. But again, like, I just love, like, again, 16 years later, and I'm still in awe of the show. I love just thinking about the concepts of it. Because I think they go in on, really, like, just kind of the process of creating this, like, they really developed the storyline well, which I think it's just so good. Like, this is one of those shows that I do believe they knew the ending before they started writing, which is so important. And I think that's where so many other shows go wrong, is they, like, or maybe they know their ending, but they take a couple turns and then they're like, well, I guess our ending isn't possible anymore. But we're going to keep pumping out seasons to get more money. So I think that's what happens to a lot of shows. And that's why the last few seasons of many shows suck, because it kind of goes outside of what the show is supposed to be about. And I think Kyle XY stays within what they wanted to do. And I think if the show would have continued, there would have hopefully have been some resolution or compromise or just something to end that this this question of morality, of is it okay to do a science experiment on a human? I don't know what the answer is. Personally, like, no. But, like, then again, thinking about it, like, something like that would help a lot of women. I think the basic principle of it, of creating something to incubate a fetus so that a woman doesn't have to carry a child, or if a woman couldn't carry a child, she could still have a child through this incubation process. I think that's, like, it's just insane. Like, this is a real world problem that still is talked, like, it's still a conversation in science, and scientific research. And so I think, like, just the storyline is so creative, and I love that. And that's why I just love this show, because so many other shows and movies, especially like now, like so many are just like reboots of the same shit we've seen over and over and over again. And that is one thing I will give Kyle XY. Well, not one thing, bitch, I'll give it all. But like, it's just like the biggest thing is it's just such a creative idea. And again, the characters are all so well developed. If anything, I would say, like, the father character is probably the least developed character in the show. He's present for, like, you get to learn, like, you know, kind of his beliefs and how he reacts to situations. But, I mean, the show definitely doesn't focus too much energy on him. Which I don't see as a problem. I think it's a great show that focuses just as much attention on the male characters as it does on the female characters. And it shows them in ways that are not stereotypical portrayals that you see in many other shows at this time period. And again, like, I think the show starts off with that kind of stereotype of Lori, but then, you know, probably after they picked up the show from the pilot episode, the writers, I'm imagining, probably had to kind of change some of, like, how can we develop this character? And so I think that developed very well. So I love that. Another side thing that I love about the show is the fucking music. beautiful. Like, the soundtrack is just so good. I love all the music in the episodes. Very early 2000s vibes, and I love it. And then again, like, you kind of get the piano music in there. There's a lot of guitar music because you have Lori learning guitar. And another side thing that I love about the characters, they kind of go into the concept of nature versus nurture with Jesse and Kyle. Kyle gets that nurturing from Nicole. Jesse doesn't get any, and she's completely just learning her personality and her morality through nature and how she is surviving. So you kind of see that, like, those coexisting. And then you also have topics of religion. So you have, like, Amanda, who is quite religious. She, like, her morality and her morals and beliefs are all based upon, not all, but, like, mostly based upon her religion and her beliefs. But then you also have, like, Nicole, who is very science-based. She's not religious. And I think the show isn't forcing you to believe anything, and I like that, because I think some shows will bring up topics of religion as something that everyone should just kind of, like, know or understand or agree with, or the opposite of that. And I like that the show kind of leaves it like either is okay and either is acceptable and either is completely, like, relevant, I guess. Like, Nicole obviously has her own morals and a beautiful moral compass. She's a great person, and she doesn't have that based off of a religious moral ground. And you have Amanda, who's also a beautiful, great person, but she does have this religious moral ground that she turns to. And I like that the show kind of doesn't push either as being right or wrong. And I love that. And because Kyle, we kind of see all of these topics being through Kyle's eyes, and that he hasn't seen, like, he's completely new to everything. So, he doesn't know what is right or wrong. And I love that the show kind of gives that of, like, it's completely up to you what you want to turn to. If you want to turn to science or religion or both, it's completely free ground, and neither is right or wrong or bad or good. I love that. Last thing I guess I can go into is, like, why was the show canceled? So I read a couple articles kind of talking about the show being canceled because the show Secret Life of an American Teenager came out, I think, relatively around the same time as Kyle XY, and the network was putting all of its resources into promoting that show, and therefore Kyle XY was not getting nearly as much promotion. So it only lasted 3 seasons. And, like, I just find it ridiculous because I have watched, I think, like, twice now I've watched The Secret Life of an American Teenager, because I did watch it when it was on TV at the time. But I did rewatch it probably about a year ago or two, and it's just ridiculous to me because that show is nowhere near as good as Kyle XY, and so I don't really understand why it did so much. Like, I think it lasted quite a few seasons. Let me actually see. Yeah, 5 seasons. So it lasted 2 more seasons than Kyle XY. Which I just don't understand. I love Shailene Woodley. I think she is an amazing actress. And they did have a lot of other great actors on the show, but it just wasn't that great, like, in comparison. I just think I don't know, and the characters I don't think are nearly as developed. I think the show has some like dry comedy in there. I don't know, like character Amy just has like no. I don't know. I just don't think her character grows that much. Clearly with the last episode. So it's just like, I don't know. It's just not. I feel like that show was definitely made for teenage entertainment, whereas I think Kyle XY, while it's freaking entertaining, like it is. I fucking love the show, but I think it also has so many like deep thematic elements to it. So I don't know. Maybe it takes someone being more open to like. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like the science. I guess science fiction doesn't always typically do that great, which I don't understand because that's like by far my favorite genre. I love science fiction. And most things that I write are also science fiction because I just fucking love it, dude. And so now I kind of, just to like wrap up, we'll talk about what was to come. So I read an article a long time ago, which I probably could find it again, but I'm not going to go looking for it, talking about what was to come in the show if it wouldn't have been canceled. It wasn't discussed what was going to exactly happen that next episode after. But what I inferred from the interview is that he wouldn't have killed him, that they would have come to an agreement. So, yeah, that's basically, yeah, they would have had more to the show, more of a resolution, I guess. And then another thing with that, the thing I love, like if the show would have kept going, because I think towards the end, Josh and Andy break up. They talked about like it would have went in. I think they were talking about having the show either keep going until this point or have a jump, like a few years later. And like Andy and Josh would get back together. Lori and Declan would have gotten back together. And then it was also talking about Kyle, if he would have chose Jesse or Amanda. And the writer said that he would inevitably, in the end up alone, which I love and hate because it's funny, like the first few times I watched the show, I'm like, I want him to be with Amanda, why? But the last time I watched the show, I'm like, I think he belongs with Jesse. But I don't know, like I'm alone, so I'm kind of like, yeah, for being alone, it's okay. But also like, what's wrong with him being with someone, you know? I think Jessie makes sense because she's the only one that truly understands what he's going through. However, I mean, it's obvious, like, their personalities clash. But opposites attract. That, you know, it's true. It's not always true, but it can be true. But, like, him and Amanda, too, they just have such a beautiful relationship with each other. And Amanda, at the very end of the show, finally learns the secret of Kyle. So they could have had this beautiful relationship, and they just didn't, and I hate it. They should have ended up together. But yeah, my hope for the show, I just want because I've honestly, because I'm going into the film industry, and I'm like, I want to be the one to bring the show back, or like make a movie to resolve the show, or to remake a show based off of the same premise, the same idea, but with new characters. Because as much as, again, I love the original cast, I don't know, first of all, if they would all come back. They're all a lot older. Again, it's been 16 years. So, I don't know that it would work out that well. But also, we need to diversitize the show. Like, it's just. I don't know. It needs to happen. Like, come on, it's 2022. So I would love to see a reboot. I don't want to even say a reboot. I just want to see a modernized version of the same premise, well developed, and I want to be the one to do it. But you know what? We'll see if it ever happens. Yeah, I don't know. I think if I were to write a script based on the show, like, I'd probably have to get permissions from, I don't know how that works. I don't know. I'll try to find out because, like, it just needs to happen. Somebody needs to bring it back because it's so fucking good. But yeah, if you sat through this whole video, you're a bad bitch. You're my bitch. But I would love for you, if you haven't seen it, go fucking watch it. Like, what are you doing with yourself? It's so good. It's on Hulu again. Hulu's like $6 a month if you haven't had it. You could get a free trial and just watch the fucking show and then cancel it if you so desire. It's just so good. It's not that long. It's 3 seasons long. I think season 3 only has like 13 episodes or something. That's 10 episodes. That's fast. Like, come on, that's a binged weekend right there. And it is a good weekend. Okay, get out your popcorn, get out your candy bars. Just watch the show. That's all I have to say. I just really wanted to talk about it because I saw it on Hulu, and I'm like, I watched the pilot and I was like, okay, before going into episode 2, I'm making a video because I need everyone to go and fucking watch the show so it gets its rep that it deserves once and for all. All right, thank you for watching.